Good evening to everyone. I want to thank you for coming tonight. I would ask the clerk to announce the meeting and call the roll.
Roll call, Philbrook.
Here.
Walker.
Here.
Townsend.
Here.
McKiernan.
Here.
Murguia.
Here.
Maddox.
Here.
Kane. Here. Markley.
Here.
Walters. Holland.
Here. Tonight, this evening, the invocation is being given by Sister Therese Bengert of Our Lady in St. Rose Catholic Church. I invite you to stand for the invocation and to please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let us bow our heads before our God. Loving God, on this days when the news is full of invasion, both in Ukraine and in the Ebola disease, we come before you, asking you to invade this meeting with love and grace, wisdom and understanding, patience and peace. Thank you for the conversation that took place before this meeting, the working to make our public servants look more like our community. Thank you for the efforts to expand opportunities for all our citizens. Please continue to guide and direct these public servants before us, that all their efforts may be for the common good and for your kingdom. And I pray in the name of Jesus, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Sister, for being here tonight. A couple of announcements before we get started. I do want to recognize Representative Tom Burrows is here in the audience tonight. I appreciate your being here. I don't see any other elected officials here tonight. I do want to recognize Junior Commissioner tonight, Mackenzie Jones from Bonner Springs High School, who is shadowing Commissioner Murguia. And so she is, we had a vacant seat on the dais, so she is filling in today, though her name was not called during roll. But welcome, Mackenzie. We're glad you're here. Ms. Flunder is here, Marianne Flunder with the Community College. Thank you for being here. Also, we have a special guest here from Zamora, Mexico, who is a commissioner there. Her name is Lily Ana Mendez Samano. So we are very delighted that you're here. Bienvenidos a Kansas City. Estamos muy alegres que estás aquí. Si quiere decir un poco a nuestra ciudad, puede hablarlo ahorita.
She understood what you said.
Once in a while. Yeah, please come to the microphone.
Buenas tardes a todos.
Good afternoon.
Es un placer poder estar aquí con ustedes.
It's a pleasure being here with everyone.
Y quisiera en este momento agradecer por todas las atenciones que su ciudad ha brindado a tantas familias y hermanos michoacanos.
She'd like to thank everyone for allowing her to be here and showing her a good time, all her friends and family and new acquaintances that she has met.
Que vinieron con el único fin de tener una mejor calidad de vida y lo consiguieron en su ciudad. Muchas gracias.
She says that she'd like to take the opportunity that she's very impressed how everyone gets along, and she hopes to take this back to her her city of Zamora. Thank you very much.
Gracias. Bienvenidos
Gracias.
otra vez. We all get along handsomely. I'd like to reinforce that point. All right. Thank you very much. We have two distinct parts of our meeting tonight. The first, one is the planning and zoning part. It will be handled first, followed by the regular commission meeting. Before we begin the planning and zoning portion of the meeting, I'll ask the clerk if there are any revisions to tonight's agenda.
There are no revisions.
I'll now ask the clerk to read the statement, followed by items on the planning and zoning consent agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We would like
Can
to
you please use, your microphone is not coming through clearly. Raise it up.
Oh, raise it up. Is that better?
Thank you.
Okay. We would like to welcome all present to this meeting of the Unified Government Commission. Members of the commission are Mayor CEO Mark Holland, Commissioner Hal Walker, At-Large District 2, Commissioner Gail Townsend, District 1, Commissioner Brian McKiernan, District 2, Commissioner Ann Murguia, District 3, Commissioner Terrence Maddox, District 4, Commissioner Mike Kane, District 5, Commissioner Ann Markley, District 6, Commissioner Jim Walters, District 7, who is unable to be present this evening, and Commissioner Jane Philbrook, District 8. As each commission is called, all persons for or against will be given the opportunity to express their views. If this is the first time that a particular petition has been before the commission has 3 options. 1, it can approve the recommendation of the Planning Commission with 6 votes. 2, it can override the Planning Commission's recommendation, but it would take 8 votes to override. Or 3, it can return the matter to the Planning Commission for further consideration, together with a statement specifying the reasons for the referral back to the Planning Commission. The consent agenda is the first part of the Planning and Zoning agenda. Items on the consent agenda have received a unanimous vote of recommendation by the Planning Commission. Unless there is a request to set aside an item from the consent agenda by the applicant, a member of the public, the Unified Government Commission, or others, then the Planning Commission's recommendation on all the items on the consent agenda will be adopted by the Unified Government Commission at one time. I will read the list of items on the consent agenda, and when I have completed the list, the mayor will ask if there are any requests to set aside items from the consent agenda. This is your time to stand up and request that an item be set aside if you do not agree with the Planning Commission's recommendation. If an item is set aside, the matter will be discussed and voted on separately. All items not set aside will be approved with the Planning Commission's recommendation. We do appreciate the attendance of those people here this evening, and we recognize the importance of each petition. We would, however, remind you that there are a number of items on the agenda, and we would appreciate your efforts to make your remarks as concise as possible. We ask that anyone with a cell phone to please turn them off or to switch to non-audio. Once the petitioners make their presentation, anyone for or against will be allowed the maximum 3 minutes to state their views. As you come to the microphone, please state your name and address for the record. The mayor and commission are required to disclose contacts with proponents or opponents on any item on the planning and zoning agenda. So at this time, does any member of the commission wish to disclose any contact with proponents or opponents on any item on the planning and zoning agenda?
Commissioner Philbrook.
Let's see. Let me get the list here. On number 3073, 3074, let's see. Yeah, I think that might be it, unless there's something down in the non-consent. But if we're just relating to the consent, I think that's it.
Thank you. Commissioner Walker.
In reference to subparagraph D, ordinance amendment, I've had recent and prolonged discussions with proponents of at least part of that ordinance over the last 2 years.
Okay, thank you. I have a disclosure on item 3073A1, the South 65th Street project, and the other components, C1 and A1 under the other sections, which speak to the same project. I've had contact with proponents for that. I've also had contact with proponents for number 3074A2. Are there others? Let the record show there's no other commissioner identifying contact. We will now move forward with the reading of the items.
Under change of zone applications, item 1, change of zone 3073, Curtis Peterson, requesting a revision to previously approved stipulations at 240 South 65th Street, recommended for approval. Item 2, change of zone 3074, Curtis Peterson, for a change of zone from AG Agriculture, R1 Single Family, and CP2 Planned General Business Districts to CP2 Planned General Business District for an auto dealership plaza at 9910 France Family Drive. Recommended for approval. Item 3, change of zone 3075, J. Angel Martinez, for a change of zone from C1 Limited Business District to C3 Commercial District for an auto repair shop at 2915 Brown Avenue. The Planning Commission is recommending approval to CP3 Planned Commercial District. Under special use permit applications, item 1, SP 2014-27, Korean Presbyterian Church of Kansas, renewal of a special use permit for the temporary use of land for 2 classrooms at 2034 South 51st Street. Recommended for approval for 1 year. Item 2, SP 2014-51, Kelly Mather, renewal of a special use permit for the temporary use of land for a modular classroom for Central Middle School at 813 Barnett Avenue. It's recommended for approval for 2 years. Item 3, SP 2014-52, Kelly Mather, renewal of a special use permit for the temporary use of land for a modular classroom for Sumner Academy at 1610 North 8th Street. Recommended for approval for 2 years. Master Plan Amendment Application, Item 1, MP 2014-4, Curtis Peterson, Master Plan Amendment from Business Park to Industrial at 240 South 65th Street. Under Ordinance Amendment, Item 1 is consideration of amendments to the Unified Government Code of Ordinances, Sections 27-722 through 27-739 regarding digital billboards and changes to the sign code. Recommended for approval. Under Miscellaneous Ordinances, Item 1 is an ordinance rezoning property at 221 South 72nd Street from R1 Single Family District to AG Agriculture District. And the final consent item is an ordinance rezoning property at 2708 and 2710 Merriam Lane and 3000 South 27th Street from CP2 Planned General Business, R1 Single Family, RP5 Planned Apartment, and CP3 Planned Commercial Districts to MP2 Planned General Business District. Those are all the items on the Planning and Zoning consent agenda.
Thank you. I'd ask now, does any member of the commission or anyone in attendance tonight wish to set aside any item on the Planning and Zoning consent agenda? If an item is not set aside, all items on the agenda will be voted on by a single vote following the recommendation of the Planning Commission. Commissioner Walker.
I'm asking that item D, the ordinance amendment, be set aside. At this point, I'm not sure whether I'm going to ask that it be tabled or whether it be sent back to planning, but it will involve requesting revisions between legal and myself that did not make it to this version.
Okay. Item D1 is set aside. Are there others?
Move for approval.
Second.
All right. It has been moved and seconded for the consent agenda. Let the record show that no one else is moving forward to set an item aside. We will now consider all the consent agenda items together. Roll call.
Okay, with the exception of the set aside, roll call, Philbrook,
Aye.
Walker,
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
McKiernan,
Aye.
Regia,
Aye.
Maddox,
Aye.
Kane, Markley.
Aye.
The vote is 8-0. The motion carries.
All right, thank you very much. That brings us to item D1. Mr. Walker, do you have a recommendation of action you'd like to see?
D1 is a
Can you speak directly into the microphone, please, sir?
D1 is, was designed to permit the placement of what are called electronic digital billboards, and that's the ones that change at prescribed intervals. And it was designed also to eliminate at least some of the blighted neighborhood billboards for each billboard that was approved, twice that billboard face surface would have to be removed elsewhere. Now, obviously, there are plenty of billboards that litter the urban core that are old style and probably not very profitable, and that will never be removed unless there is an incentive to do so. And so between myself and legal, there is to be a determination of how that incentive is achieved. I will also be looking for input from at least the major billboard companies as to what their thoughts and concerns are on this. It's going to have to go back to planning because there's going to be substantive changes made, so I'm hoping to have those in time to send that back to the planning. Are we going to make September 8th? I mean, do you have to give notice of this?
On this case, the notice has been published in the Echo, and your actions can constitute the continued notice on that. So we don't have to republish, or we don't have to give notice to anyone. But we do need the information Wednesday the week before so that we can incorporate it in the packet and get it out to the Planning Commission. So that would be sometime September 5th or 4th or 5th.
We're coming up on a holiday weekend with Monday off. If next Wednesday, the
Next
3rd.
Wednesday would be the 3rd, yeah. I'm sorry, I didn't.
Well, we will get it on, we will send it back to planning. I'm requesting that we send it back to planning and zoning as soon as the revisions are made. So if it doesn't make it this month, it'll go back in October.
We will put on this month's agenda and then hold it over if need be to continue the notice.
Thank you.
Is there a second? Second. It's been moved and seconded. Commissioner Murguia.
Mayor, just have an additional comment to Commissioner Walker in regard to his initiative on the sign ordinance. First of all, thank you very much. I really appreciate it, and I couldn't be more supportive of the changes. My one comment is that recently I was involved in a variance for signage that I was not convinced was really necessary. What I'd like to see moving forward, and I surely don't want to slow the process for the electronic signage, but I'd like to see more professional discretion given to our staff about our signage in the future. The example is several lawyers and architects were paid a lot of money to hold a community meeting in regard to the new Walmart, where all they wanted to do was add the word pharmacy on the front of the building. That's it, to let people know that there's going to be a pharmacy on the side of the building. It's really not a good use of time of anybody's to spend on that level of detail, and it surely didn't need to, cost the development that much more money. So it's just really feedback, and I just wanted to make sure it was out there. Not that staff did anything wrong. You absolutely followed our policy, and we greatly appreciate that, and not that the developer did anything wrong. I just would like to see things move a little more efficiently. Thank you.
Commissioner Walker.
I think that we anxiously await this review of our planning and zoning ordinances and the opportunity to simplify, if you want to call it be business friendly, and eliminate those kind of examples from requiring, I mean, every requirement we impose on a developer or businessman costs money. And the problem is that not everybody has the money to spare. So I've been waiting, and I'll continue to wait to hear when we will initiate this study, because I have a feeling there's several of us that have input we want to make on changes that we're gonna shoot for. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. We need a roll call vote on sending this back to the Planning and Zoning. Seeing no further comments, roll call.
Roll call. Philbrook.
Aye.
Walker. Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
Murguia.
Aye.
Maddox.
Aye.
Kane. Markley.
Aye.
The motion carries 8-0.
Thank you. That concludes our Planning and Zoning agenda for tonight. That no, it doesn't. That was wishful thinking. We have one item on Planning and Zoning. Thank you. One item on non-consent agenda for Planning and Zoning, and that is a plan review application, PR 2014-18. I will ask Mr. Richardson to make preliminary introduction to this, and then we'll have the proposer come forward and make presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is probably, I know it's the first time since I've been here that we've had a case that was approved unanimously in part and approved but with a split vote in part. You've already approved both the change of zone and the master plan amendment for this case. However, there was a little bit of discussion about the site plan as it related to the case and the uses, the use of a tower crane and the reduction of some of the trees on the site. Kurt Peterson with Postinelli is here to represent the applicant, and I'll let him take it from there.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Kurt Peterson with the Polsinelli Law Firm, 6201 College Boulevard in Overland Park. Here on behalf of J.E. Dunn, and with me is is the operations director for Dunn for this facility, Patrick Lease, as well as our engineer from Luchen, Scott Cargill. Knowing there are other items that will fill the time tonight on the agenda, I will attempt to be brief and then know that we can take as much time as you want and we can drill down in the details. This is a logistics facility. J.E. Dunn hopes to make its entrance into our state with this facility. It will bring a lot of jobs, upwards of $50 million of investment. As you can see on the screen, it's located at the northwest corner of K32 and 65th Street. The site would be divided roughly in half. It would have with one building, the site would have a tower crane rental facility on the west side. On the other side, it would have a equipment rental facility for contractors. The building would be generally serving both right down the middle, the two different operations. As Mr. Richardson said, there is a tower crane that would be located in the western half of the site. That's a very, very, can't underscore very enough important part of this whole location to Kansas, was a ability to have a tower crane for the efficiency it offers as opposed to just having mobile cranes. Again, keeping it short, there are mobile cranes still involved because two things happen. We get very, very busy at times, and you have to have multiple cranes going on the site to be able to load the crane pieces and get them out to the job sites. And then unfortunately, multiple times a year, you do have the tower crane go down. Again, you need to have your mobile cranes working. Mobile cranes, because they have to be able to lift 40,000 pounds of load, and because of just physics, they have to have a tall boom because it'll tip over the mobile crane part if it's has a tall boom and it's trying to lift 40,000 pounds and it's at a tight angle, so you have to be very straight up and down, which means your tower crane has to be tall. You put all that together, and a very important part of this site is having a tower crane of at least minimum 140 feet, which is what we've asked with this application. So with that, there's certainly more details, Mr. Mayor, but that I think would summarize where we've been with the Planning Commission and getting their recommendation and coming before you today. Happy to answer any questions you might have with the Commission.
All right, I will first start with the commissioners. If commissioners have any questions of the applicant, and after the commissioners' comments or questions, we will open the public hearing. But are there any commissioners who wish to comment at this time? Commissioner McKiernan.
Just curious, did the concern of the discussion about this tower crane come up in one of the planning commission meetings? Because as I looked back through it, I was trying to look for what prompted this to come off of consent. Do you remember the date of the meeting on which this discussion occurred?
Commissioner, on August 13th, this item was on the Planning Commission agenda.
Please speak directly into the microphone.
There were 3 motions that night, and there was discussion of the crane from the neighbors. Some of it didn't make the record because it was stated from the audience, and but there was at least one vote against the preliminary site plan, but it was approved, I believe 8-1 or 7-1 to move forward.
7-1. Thank you. Any other further questions, Commissioner McKiernan?
No, thank you.
Commissioner Philbrook?
Yes, I was present during that meeting, and the major concern was the reduction of the trees and the height of the boom, and whether it would be in the way of their viewing off their back porch. And I think that was about it.
Thank you. Any other commissioners with questions or comments? You'll have another opportunity. I'd just like to do this preliminarily before we open the planning and zoning public hearing. Seeing no further comments at this time, I'd like to open the public hearing. If you would like to speak, anyone present would like to speak, we would ask that you step to the podium, give us your name and address for the record. You'll be given 3 minutes to make your comments. I will ask for those who would like to speak in favor of the proposal to step forward first. Is there anyone who would like to speak in favor of this proposal to come to the microphone at this time? Let the record show I see no one here to speak in favor of the proposal. Is there anyone who would like to speak in opposition to the proposal? I'd invite you to please come to the microphone at this time.
Move for approval?
Second.
Let the record show no one moved forward to speak in opposition. We will close the public hearing. It is now properly moved and seconded. Seeing no further comments, roll call.
Roll call, Philbrook,
Aye.
Walker,
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
McKiernan,
Aye.
Regia,
Aye.
Maddox,
Aye.
Kane, Markley.
Aye.
The vote is 8-0. The motion carries.
Thank you. That does conclude our planning and zoning agenda, both consent and non-consent. That brings us now to our regular session. The first 2 items are voting delegates to the League of Kansas Municipality Conference and the Kansas Association Conference. The first is voting delegates for League of Kansas Municipalities. Mr. Bach, do we have those names?
I will look to the clerk. Do you have a record of those names with you, Carol?
Recognize me on this.
I believe we have Commissioner Walters has requested to attend that. As far as staff, I'm not sure.
Yes, I'll be attending the League of Kansas Municipalities in Wichita as a voting delegate. How many voting delegates do we have?
Well, Mayor,
Yes, Commissioner Philbrook.
sorry. I just put mine in, so you'll be getting it at our next meeting, just so you know,
Commissioner Philbrook. Are
for
there others?
KLM.
For LKM, are there others? We do have some, how many? Is Mike Taylor here?
Mike Taylor is attending as well from staff.
Is he a
And-
voting
and Gordon-
delegate?
And Assistant County Administrator Gordon Criswell.
Okay. And we will use that group as our voting delegates or alternates as available. Okay,
You need a motion?
we do.
Move for approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Roll call.
Roll call, Philbrook,
Aye.
Walker,
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
McKiernan,
Aye.
Regia,
Aye.
Maddox,
Aye.
Kane, Markley.
Aye.
That motion is 8-0. The motion passes. That brings us to the county side. Commissioner Walker. I wrote, sorry.
I read in there that I had requested to go to that conference. I did not request to go, and I'm not able to go this
Okay.
year. I'm sorry.
Thank you. You have attended in the past. We appreciate that.
And I'm sure one of my other commissioners would love to go to that conference.
Let the record show no one is chiming in.
It's a real treat. You're really missing out.
I do believe Commissioner Walters has attended in the past.
Yes, he has.
Kansas Association of Counties, it is.
Yes. Walters
Yeah,
Walters
Commissioner
has sent in.
Walters,
Walters will go.
and Mike Taylor is also attending from staff. So you need one voting delegate and an alternate.
So we have those, Commissioner Walters and Mike Taylor. We do need a motion.
Move for approval?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Roll call.
Roll call, Philbrook,
Aye.
Walker,
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
McKiernan,
Aye.
Murgia,
Aye.
Maddox.
Aye.
Kane. Markley.
Aye.
Motion carries 8-0.
We now have our consent agenda. Weekly business items and minutes are the only two items.
Move to approval.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Roll call.
Roll call, Philbrook,
Aye.
Walker,
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
McKiernan,
Aye.
Murgia,
Aye.
Maddox,
Aye.
Kane. Markley.
Aye.
Motion carries 8-0.
That brings us now to our public hearing agenda, a public hearing for an ordinance and resolution regarding Vacation Village Star District. I will turn this over to Administrator Bach for initial presentation.
Thank you, Mayor, Commission. Tonight, we're excited to bring forward the first steps, or later steps, I guess, in the process for amendment to the Vacation Village Development District, as well as consideration of an agreement with Schlitterbahn regarding this development. This event tonight kind of accumulates from a July announcement when the governor and the mayor announced, along with Sporting Kansas City, the intent of U.S. Soccer to bring their national training headquarters to our community. We have since moved forward with a meeting on August 4th before the standing committee, to which staff presented terms and such that would be set forth as to how we would amend our development area. And within that development area, it does extend and change some of the locations within it, and extends over the Village West area. I can assure everyone, as questions have asked, that there is nothing within this proposal that does anything to extend the current terms of our Village West area, and that those bonds will continue to be paid off as they currently are. It just contemplates new uses that could come into this area. But that meeting went forth on August 4th, where those terms were set out. The public was there involved to go through the issues. We've been working on this in coordination with the governor's office, as well as the Secretary of Commerce, as to how all the different components of this deal could come together as it relates to the local level, and where the state's role would come into play as this as well. So tonight, I'm going to ask our Economic Development Director, George Brakovich, to come forward, and he's going to present the major deal points surrounding this deal. It will be followed by Todd LaSala, who's counsel for the Unified Government that works with us. He'll go through other deal points that were presented to the Commission, and also as they pertain to this development agreement that is before you tonight. We'll also hear comments from Richard Naper, who's with the Schlitterbahn Group, and Rob Heineman, who is here from Sporting Kansas City. After such time, if there are questions by the Commission, then we would move to a public hearing regarding this matter, and then afterward we would look for action regarding adoption to amend the plan that is being presented, and then consideration of the development agreement that is also being presented. So with that, I'll recognize Mr. Brakovich to come forward and offer the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Bach. Mayor, Commissioners, good evening. George Brakovich with Economic Development. Hopefully I can get this slideshow started. As Mr. Bach mentioned, my role tonight is just kind of lay out some of the parameters around the two items that are up for public hearing, and then to do kind of a brief overview of some of the deal points in the proposed development agreement that's been negotiated with SVV1 LLC, the Schlitterbahn development site. Before we kind of jump into what we're doing here tonight, I thought it'd be beneficial to go and just revisit some of the previous action we've had on this item, In early July, the developer submitted an amended district plan for the district, as well as project plans for what will be project areas 1, 2, and 4 of the district. And then subsequently, on July 14th, Planning Commission had to make a conformance finding that those project plans do indeed conform to the master plan. And that meeting was held here, and those findings were made. And then it's hard to believe, but over a month ago, on July 23rd, there was an announcement with our partners at On Goal about the U.S. Soccer National Training Facility being built here in Kansas City. The governor made a presentation, as well as the mayor, and various other state and local officials were also at that event. Then July 24th, full commission actually approved a resolution that set the public hearing date for tonight, and I can assure you all that we followed all the statutory guidelines in terms of certified mailings and publication notices, so we are here officially. And then, as Mr. Bach mentioned, August 4th, we took this project. We did not have the full development agreement done, but we had an executive summary and really the summary deal points that you'll see here tonight pretty much in the exact same form for that meeting. But here we are tonight, so what are we doing? 2 public hearings, one on the expanded and amended district, and then secondly, public hearing for the project plans, again, for areas 1, 2, and 4, and then there's an ordinance that would approve both of those. Separately, there's a resolution for your consideration that would authorize the mayor to execute the development agreement if you see so fit. And again, that development agreement is with SVV1 and covers project areas 1, 2, 3, and 5. We anticipate having a development agreement structured with U.S. Soccer, or with On Goal, for their project related to the U.S. Soccer facility at a future date. So the original Vacation Village Star District, again, bound by Parallel on the north, State Avenue on the south, 94th on the east, and I-435 on the west, one large contiguous area. The proposed amended and expanded district, if you look at the centerpiece here, is the exact same district, just divided into separate project areas. Project Area 1, and I'm going to go through these project areas fairly briefly because Mr. LaSala has a much more detailed explanation, but Project Area 1, for all intents and purposes, is the existing water park. Project Area 2 is proposed autoplex with hotel pad sites and restaurant pad sites. Project Area 3 would be this green area, kind of a front 59 acre site, future plan for retail development and possible office use. Project Area 4 is the purple area, and again, this is the property that Schlierbahn is putting into the mix for the U.S. Soccer National Training Facility. It also has an overlay that goes back into the Village West area, but as Mr. Bach said earlier, it does not use any of the existing base sales tax numbers there. It would be planned future increment off that site, and as well as putting in a new 127 acre site on the east side of 94th Street into play for soccer fields as well, youth soccer fields. And then the blue area, Project Area 5, is for future water park expansion and lodging. We wanted to put this slide up to show really the magnitude of the total project investment going into the area. So between the land acquisition and the water park, we know that there's some existing costs that have been incurred by the developer, and then we know there's future costs or estimated future costs to finish this project out. So looking at the costs that have been incurred to date, we're over $220 million. Looking at what this project is projected to cost at completion, we're looking at somewhere near $660 million. So part of the project then, and what we're here for tonight, in part with the development agreement, is to consider star bond financing for project areas 1 and 2. Again, we are contemplating that there could be a $90 million cap or proceeds available up to $90 million, again, subject to market constraints. And Lou Levin's here tonight, and he's much more qualified to discuss what those market constraints might be. But of note, 5.4 million is the outstanding debt on what the UG issued to get 98th Street reconstructed. So of this bond issuance, 5.4 million would be made available to repay that debt. Additionally, there will be proceeds made available to pay for a new traffic signal at 98th Street, as well as the monies that were advanced by water pollution to put in the Marshall Creek sewer interceptor. So what's contemplated from the UG share on this is that the debt backing on the future star bond issuance is coming really from, well, it's only limited to the sales tax and the transient guest tax that's pledged to the project. And so we wanted to be emphatic in pointing out that there's no UG general funds or any other backing by the UG for this project. Wanted to just kind of dive in a little.
Can I jump in?
Yeah.
The no general obligation backing is consistent with all other star bond districts that we've had. The unified government has never backed in general obligation star bond projects. Is that right?
That is correct, Mayor.
Thank you.
Just wanted to dive in a little bit into more detail about what the UG pledge is, and then talk a little bit about what are the revenue streams that we retain in this project. So pledge to the project is the 1% of our city sales tax. It's the UG share of county sales tax, and then again the transient guest or the hotel guest tax. What we retain are the EMS plus the dedicated sales tax and property tax. And so what we're trying to show with this slide is just looking at project area 2, what kind of annual revenue stream is generated by this project. So we know the sales tax will be diverted to help offset the debt, but at full build out, the UG share of the annual sales tax retained are estimated at $1.5 million. We also think that this project will introduce about $42 million in new appraised value via the projects that are being put in place. And again, Lou's staff calculated that the UG portion of that is roughly $800,000. So we're thinking approximately a total annual impact of $2.3 million from this project that will be retained locally.
Commissioner Walker, do you have something related to this slide?
Yes, I do. Mr. Brakovich,
And again, can you please speak directly in the microphone for the people at home?
Mr. Brakovich,
Yes.
you're indicating that this, at full build-out, this portion of the project will have an appraised value of $42 million. Are there guarantees in the document that they've accepted that as the appraised value for real estate taxation purposes?
There are not guarantees of that nature. This is looking at existing projects that we have, and I hate to speak for Lou, his staff put this together, but as we discussed it earlier today, we feel these are actually conservative estimates based on existing values.
You know, we've had a lot of projects built out there that have been proclaimed on the front end to have a certain value at build-out, and then as it has come time to pay the tax man, these buildings, for one or more reasons, have a peculiarity about them, or a bond covenant, or some other restriction that lawyers then argue makes that $42 million building worth 10 cents. And I am increasingly concerned about the representations in new projects of what it's going to pay out in taxes, and then it does not occur when it comes time for those taxes to be. So to what extent we can get a commitment as to, I mean, normally you take a house, I build a new house and I pay $250 for that house. That's what the tax man's going to charge me. However, when we look at various projects, we have not had that successful cost of build be the assessed value. And so if you're going to represent that this is a 42 portion is 42 million at build out, I would hope there is something that will guarantee that to be the fact when it comes time to start paying taxes on this property.
So noted, Commissioner. I guess maybe just one quick note to that. On that previous slide where we showed projected costs to complete this project, I'd note that for Area 2, if we just looked at the Autoplex and the hotel restaurant pad development, that's a projected completion cost of over $100 million. And so, coming to a value of $42 million, again, it's just trying to highlight that we looked at existing projects and tried to come up with a real number to avoid setting any sort of false expectations. Yep.
Project's worth $100 million. When it comes in the door, when it comes out the door, it needs to be worth $100 million, at least in that first year.
Yep.
We've not found that to be true.
So noted. Okay.
Excellent point, Commissioner. Thank you. We could
So-
list some names.
Moving on with some of the additional deal points related to the development agreement, we talked in that earlier slide of bond proceeds being made available up to $90 million, and so we've heard the Commission's direction in the past on projects where we really wanted to insert some performance criteria and let's say not just make all the funds available all at once. So under that direction, we came up with this idea of a $25 million holdback provision that laid out some additional performance criteria on the developer. And so it's really a release of that $25 million in two tiers. The first tier would be the developer would be eligible to receive $15 million of that $25 million holdback when they do two things. One is execute a ground lease to provide ground to On Goal for the U.S. soccer project, and secondly, they clean up, rough grade, and seed the 50 to 59 acres in Project Area 3. So right now, there's some hills there, mounds, there's still some construction, and they've done a great job recently to clean it up from what it looked like in years past, but this is a firm commitment to get that really cleaned up and graded. Then secondly, that second tier would be an additional release of that last $10 million holdback if they do one of these two things. The UG is able to have a unconditional, fully executed agreement with U.S. Soccer for Project Area 4, or the developer timely commences with the initial phases of Project Area 3. And again, Project Area 3 anticipates up to 400,000 square feet of new commercial retail or a mix of office in there that would also reduce the total square footage. Other key deal points. Within the Auto Mall complex itself, there's two dealerships that were former Wyandotte County businesses, a Chrysler and a Ford. Due to market pressures by the manufacturers, those two facilities were not able to expand to meet the needs of the manufacturer, and so those points of sale were on the market, and there was a real threat to move those dealerships outside of our county. And so the developer group wanted to shore that up and help or assist to keep those dealerships within our community. But we also wanted to acknowledge that they were here previously and make an attempt to capture any base sales that they were generating. So although the manufacturers labeled them as underperformers and whatnot, they were still generating a sales tax. And so within this agreement is a provision to indeed capture that base sales tax. A quick note about the STAR calendar. Again, we talked about this a little bit at standing committee. You know, STAR projects are just like TIFs. You know, in TIF you create a district, but your calendar doesn't start ticking down until you approve the plan. Same thing here, but the thought is for Project Area 1, which is the existing water park, we'll leave that clock going as it is. So they've already, they're 8 years down the road on that one, so out of a 20-year term, it has 12 years left. However, for all these other project areas where we're creating a new project area and there's a new project plan submitted, it's contemplated that each of those would have that full 20-year term. Additional developer improvements include improving the condition of the temporary intersection at their existing location, which is on the north side of State Avenue, or the entrance to their location on the north side of State Avenue, as well as the St. Pat's Church parking lot entrance, and they've agreed to do that. This project also includes sidewalks, and there's a very detailed exhibit within the development agreement that really spells out what the sidewalks look like from Parallel to State Avenue along 98th Street and so on. And then the S-curve portion of 98th Street, so for those of you that are familiar with 98th Street now, it comes to a T intersection at France Family. That's not what was contemplated in the long-term planning there, and so we're trying to address through the development agreement, ensuring that that S-curve gets put in place per the direction of Public Works and planning staff. The CID portion of this, some of you probably recall this, in 2013 we established a pay-as-you-go 2% sales tax add-on CID. Part of that CID ensured that the UG would be repaid for its traffic signal and that Marshall Creek sewer interceptor before any proceeds were made available to the developer. Since those two items will be paid from that initial bond proceeding, we're agreeing to just transfer that pay-as-you-go CID to the developer, or that's what we're proposing. And then on project area 3, we talked about in that previous slide to timely commence the construction. Really comes down to there is a 5-year period for the developer to initiate significant development on that site, or the UG gets an option on the property. And again, Mr. LaSalle will have some more details on that. And then finally, when we originally negotiated the agreement with SVV, prevailing wage was still in our tool belts, and so we asked them to honor that original commitment, and they have. So any part of this project that's going to be constructed by SVV will fall under prevailing wage provisions, and they've agreed to LMW participation goals on both the construction and professional services component of this project. Very big deal. Donations, again, the original agreement contemplated donations made by the developer to not-for-profit. Those payments have never been made, and so the rolling balance, or the balance due, I guess, is $750,000. So the agreement is that they would pay that at the time of the bond issuance, and what we've agreed to is kind of start over with the schedule. And so what the schedule always contemplated is the donation started at a $100,000 level. It had an annual incremental increase of $25,000 up to $250,000. And so if the the commitment is there to pay the $750 now, we'll restart that calendar.
Commissioner Kane.
Don't take that slide off there.
Okay.
3 things. You said if the mayor approves this?
Oh, I'm sorry. If I did, it was a...
I sign it on your behalf, but only if you approve it.
Okay.
correct.
Can't sign anything you don't approve.
I'm gonna let that go.
I misspoke. I'm sorry.
You paying attention to what's going on here? First of all, I want, if we pass this, I want this on our website tomorrow morning.
Okay.
You know, and it's huge. And I really appreciate it. I think the folks that work and live and build this type of stuff are going to appreciate it. And the fact that those license plates will be from Kansas and Missouri and not from somewhere else, I think this is outstanding. And one other thing, we said we involved the state, and which is great. But I think we need to involve like the state reps that are in that area, not just the ones in Topeka, the ones that live here with us, the ones that have worked on star bonds before. State Rep Burrows is here, so when we're having some meetings, I think we need to involve those folks as well, so they know what's going on as well as we know what's going on. You know, and I think that's something that we need to bring up, and I think it would be appreciated from everybody. But I want you to know that that is just short of outstanding considering what's happened from the state. And words can't say how much I appreciate that.
Thank you. Okay. And then this is back to the proposed STAR district, so I'll turn this over to Mr. LaSalle.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. George did a nice job of giving you an overview. I'm going to go into slightly more detail about certain aspects of the development agreement that you have before you. I'm going to work through the executive summary that we prepared about the document. And for those who saw this same executive summary and these same deal points in the Economic Development and Finance Committee, I will highlight a few differences, some things that have changed as the deal has evolved over the course of the last month. What you have before you is actually an amended and a restated development agreement. That really sort of, the nature of this agreement sort of captures the fact that the original agreement was written and approved by you in 2006. It's been amended 6 times. And so the document you have before you incorporates all 6 of those amendments and creates one single document that has all the terms and conditions between you and this developer. As Mr. Brakovich said, there are now 5 separate and distinct project areas that have been created within the original Schlitterbahn site. Project Area 1, the area that is peach-colored, if you will, on that map, is really the existing water park site. The contract, the development agreement, does not require additional improvements to the water park. There probably will be improvements, but there are no contractual requirements to continue to expand and grow the water park. The document also provides for additional retail, lodging, and other opportunities within that project area, but contractually, their obligations relative to Project Area 1 as of today have been met. Project Area 2 is a lot of the focus of this document because it really captures the auto mall project with some retail and some pad sites. There are somewhere between 4 and 7 auto dealerships that are contemplated in Project Area 2, the yellow area on that map. That area also includes 2 restaurant pad sites, a convenience store, gas station location, a C-store. All of that would be west of 94th Street. And then there are also additional pad sites, probably restaurants, and a 150-room extended stay hotel. All of those projects, still within Area 2, would be located west of 94th Street. Those projects are probably related to the U.S. soccer facility that would be built just east of that. And so the timing for those projects probably conforms to when and if U.S. Soccer were to come to that site. The deadlines relative to this Auto Plaza portion of the project are that the developer is really supposed to start work on those Auto Plaza projects by December 31st of this year, and then complete at least 4 auto dealerships in Project Area 2 by December 31st of 2016. The rest of the project within Area 2, that yellow area, should be completed by December 31st of 2017. So that's really the timing for that part of the project. Project Area 3, the area that is shown in green on that map, is a 400,000 square foot retail facility. This part of the project carries over from the original development agreement, and it was also a 400,000 square foot retail facility in the original deal as well. The UG is requiring that commencement of that part of the project, the retail facility, start by September 1st of 2019. And it is contemplated that it'll be developed in phases over time with a completion date of the entire thing by September 1st of 2022. George, I think, touched on this, but it is also a possibility that there will be an office component of that project. More specifically, there's the potential for a new to Kansas office headquarters to choose this area, Project Area 3, to locate more than 300 new jobs in a headquarters facility, and they're very high-paying jobs that would have over 200% of the average wage in Wyandotte County right now. If that happens in that green area, there's obviously less room to develop the 400,000 square foot retail facility. So if that happens on between 12 and 13 acres of that site, The obligation of the developer is to create a 275,000 square foot facility as opposed to 400 to sort of recognize the land that would be put into that deal. If that office headquarters comes, there are also certain changes that will occur in the financing structure, and I'll touch on that a little bit later. Project Area 4 on that map, the area that's in purple, is really the U.S. soccer facility deal that is being contemplated and worked on right now. As George said, this developer is not charged with completing that part of the project. That is probably separate agreements that would come before you later that would be between the UG and On Goal, the developer of the sporting park. That part of the project would also include the tournament fields concept, perhaps some fields in the purple area that's in the original Schlitterbahn development, as well as a portion of the tournament fields complex east of 98th Street on that new ground that would be added to the district. The commencement dates and completion dates for that facility would be agreed upon later and would come before you for approval at a later date. And as George touched on, the blue area is Project Area 5. There's not a lot of specificity about what would happen in that area, but it would come before you potentially later and has the ability to be probably lodging facilities in the future. Mr. Brakovich did a nice job of summarizing the budget for you. There is approximately $220 million that has already been invested into this site, including about $82 million in design and construction costs and $81 million in land acquisition. The new projects that are contemplated and covered by this agreement include about $115 million of new capital investment in this site for the auto plaza and the retail portion of the project in Project Area 2, as well as perhaps $187 million for the retail facility that would appear in Project Area 3. So again, up to $640 million worth of total investment in this site. There is a star bond issuance that is in the near horizon that is expected by the development agreement. It would really be for the Autoplex complex that's in Project Area 2 as well as the water park. That original star bond issue would be approximately $90 million. It's really capped at net star bond proceeds of $90 million. As George highlighted, the UG would get some money right off the top of that $90 million issue to reimburse itself for some infrastructure costs that the UG already has into this project. $5.4 million would be for a note, for a temporary note that exists for the improvements the UG has already made to 98th Street, as well as about $275,000 for a new traffic signal at 98th, and $665,000 for the remaining costs of a previously constructed sewer interceptor and lift station for the Marshall Creek sewer interceptor. George also touched on this, but there is a holdback portion of that $90 million. In other words, the developer does not receive all of that money right away. There are performance milestones that must be achieved to get that $25 million if you're the developer. The first piece of that is a $15 million holdback that in order to get that money, the developer has to do two things. One, they have to reach a lease, an agreement with On Goal about the U.S. soccer facility and provide that ground for free. The second thing that they have to do is really clean up and rough grade that green area that's on this map. There is some construction and some equipment. All of that has to be removed, and that site has to be rough graded to get the $15 million. Then to get the last $10 million of the 25, the developer has to do one of really three things. Either have a conclusive, unconditional agreement reached between the UG and U.S. Soccer. Two, commence work on the footings and foundations for Project Area 3, the retail site, and they have to start, I think it's at least 175,000 square feet of footings and foundations. Or three, have us reach an unconditional agreement with that office headquarters project that could potentially land in Project Area 3. if any of those three things happen, that $10 million of the holdback would be released, and the developer would have access to that money. As George touched on, there are two of the auto plaza concepts that would potentially land in Project Area 2 formerly existed in Wyandotte County under prior ownership. But the developer has agreed that for those two auto dealers, we would have a $15.5 million base. Only new sales above $15.5 million would be allowed to benefit this project. The other portion of that sales, the 15.5, would be captured and distributed to the taxing jurisdictions largely the way it was before. For the county portion of that money, it would be distributed exactly the same way. And for the city portion of that money, it would be evenly split between Bonner and Edwardsville. And it's really to protect those existing base sales. There are also, to touch on the timing again for the project areas, you really have a 20-year life for each of these areas. And so for the original water park part of the project that was approved in 2007, that plan was, since it was approved in 2007, that Star Bond district really ends and closes down in 2027. For the new area, the project plan you'd approve relative to the water park or to the auto plaza tonight, since that would happen in 14, that district would live until 2034. And if we come before you later with great projects for Project Area 3, it would be 20 years from whenever you approve that project plan. An additional word or two about the changes that would happen if the office project lands in Project Area 3. There are some changes to the financing structure that are important and worth noting. As George mentioned, the developer has responsibility for that S-curve that you see that touches France Family Drive. If that happens, if the office comes, the responsibility for those costs really shifts from the developer to the unified government. Same is true for the $5.4 million note we spoke of for 98th Street. Those costs shift to the unified government side of the ledger. However, the agreement contemplates that we have to reach, the unified government has to reach an agreement with the state about how those costs would be covered. You could grow the size of the Star Bond issue or find other ways to resolve that, but unless and until the unified government reaches agreement with the state about how those costs would be covered, those obligations are completely conditional. But I wanted to point it out because it is a change that occurs if the office project selects this site and you decide to make a deal with that office developer to land at this location. There are industrial revenue bonds that are contemplated as part of the financing structure here. Importantly, they are not revenue IRBs that are designed to abate property taxes. They are purely to abate the sales taxes on construction materials. George mentioned some of the developer improvements. It's important to note that all the infrastructure improvements related to this development will be paid for, and the responsibility for those resides with the developer. Specifically, the developer agrees to handle that S-curve that we keep talking about unless the office project selects this site. There are also intersection improvements that will happen along State Avenue, including new drives for St. Patrick's. And there are very specific agreements in this development agreement about sidewalk systems that would be provided within the project. There are also two escrows that would be provided that are important. One is an escrow for taxes to make sure that the property taxes are paid on time. That escrow concept exists for 10 years of the project, assuming that the developer has always paid their property taxes on time. If that is not the case, or if somewhere after that initial 10 years they pay the property taxes late, this agreement springs back into effect and we escrow their semi-annual property tax payments, so you always make sure that you have the property tax money. Additionally, there is a maintenance agreement and a maintenance escrow that's in place for that 59 acres that is west of the water park. George mentioned the option that the UG has with regard to Project Area 3. It's very important to us that Project Area 3 ultimately happen. That's the 400,000 square foot retail facility. If they do not commence work on that site by the 2009 date that's required, 2019 date that is required, then the unified government has an option to take over that part of the project, to buy it, or we have an option to buy it from the developer for fair market value. So as a practical matter, it's the it's an option the UG would probably only exercise if it had another developer had another use for that project. But it is an option that you have. In the meantime, the developer agrees that they will come in and make regular reports to the unified government about what's happening and their potential activity for that site. So you will know exactly how they're doing and how their leasing activity and sales activity is going for that site. Importantly, if the office project does come to that area, that 300 job project lands there, this option that you have goes away. There's an agreement that if the office project starts there, and that's a significant catalyst in that project, that instead of commencing the retail part of the project, at that point we will agree that our option to buy that property goes away. George did a nice job of touching on the recognition of the prevailing wage obligations, and we spoke about that. Quickly, I'll just tell you that a lot of the development agreement provisions that existed in our 2006 development agreement have completely carried through. A lot of what we're discussing are specific changes that are unique to this deal, but when it comes to our kind of normal provisions about insurance and indemnification and maintenance, most of those provisions have just carried through. They're exactly what we agreed to in 2006. The provision about the donations, George is correct, those donations have never been made, but the agreement is that at Starbond closing, $750,000 is immediately made. A payment would be made to the unified government for a foundation or a nonprofit organization that you will select. After that, we're going to start over and ramp up donations, $100,000 a year going forward. This obligation, and this is a relatively new provision, there was, I think, ambiguity about how long this provision in the original agreement survived. Arguably, it said that this would go on forever, as long as the water park was open and alive. The developer argued to have that provision end with the life of this agreement. We have compromised and agreed that the donation provision, that donation obligation, will survive for a 10-year period after the term of this agreement. So,
What, 2044?
well, actually, Commissioner, it's unknown because the development agreement term ends with the last project area. So if, let's say, project area 3 doesn't happen and the last project area that you ever approve is the one that you would potentially approve tonight, then it would be 2034 plus 10. It would be 2044 that it would survive. However, if 5 years from now you approve another project for project area 3 or 5, there's an additional 20 years plus 10. So it'd be 30 years from the last project plan that you approve.
Pretty good.
Long time.
And he'll still be arguing for the money, I guarantee it.
The last thing that I would touch on before I would step away from the podium would be the MBE, WBE, LBE obligations that are in this agreement. I'm sorry, the goals carry through from the previous agreement. There are goals for professional services and for construction. Despite what the summary may say, there are not operational goals. As a matter of policy, the UG doesn't do that anymore. It was in the former agreement. It is not in the current agreement. But it is the same goals, and these obligations have teeth. So, among other things, because you have a pay-as-you-go CID component of the financing on this project, if the developer fails to make its reports for MBE, LBE, WBE compliance, you have the right to stop the money and not pay them until they make those reports. In addition to that, if they fail to comply with their obligations and under that agreement, you have the right to reduce the CID that they would receive by 25%. So those are the practical remedies in the document that exist with regard to LBE, MBE, and WBE. So I know that's a lot of detail, but we wanted to make sure that folks knew exactly what was in this development agreement.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
What I'd like to do is, if any commissioner has a question at this point, I would take it. We are going to open up for a public hearing, and we're going to combine the two public hearings and do them simultaneously. And after the public hearing, if there are questions from the commission, we can entertain them at that time. Does that sound right? Okay, so let's move forward with the... Okay, we have, before we go to the public hearing, we do have two more brief presentations.
Mayor, very brief. Kurt Peterson, a good evening. Here with my partner and personal hero, John Peterson, Polsinelli, 6201 College Boulevard.
Does he owe you money or something?
Hey, from the heart. Richard Napper, you've heard his name a few times tonight. Many of you have seen him working on this project for some time now, many months. He's here representing EPR Properties. And Chuck Stites, also a familiar face, is a representative of the property owner. That was, all kidding aside, that was the most comprehensive and precise summary by staff and UG's attorney that I've seen. It really did an excellent job of hitting what has been months of discussions, and I will not add a single thing to that, Mayor, which I know everyone is excited about. I will say probably 30 seconds of additional material, though. One is that, again, Richard Napper behind me, just wants you to know, he has really worked full-time, just coming on a year now, full-time with EPR and the property owner just on this project. His goal was, and his instructions were from those groups, go out and make this project happen again. The recession killed it, and it killed all the projects across the state and really the country. Go figure out what you can do, get an engine, and make it happen. Bring us something great. And we would submit to you respectfully tonight that really, it's Richard Napper and what he's done, again, with his backers that have been able to put the project before you tonight that you're going to consider. We were thrilled about halfway through that process as Richard worked when he stumbled upon Mr. Rob Heineman, and they got their heads together, and we all know what sporting can do when they get creative. And they came up with, again, the part of the project you see in purple up on the screen, and we, again, no other word for it, thrilled at the synergy and the excitement that Mr. Heineman is going to speak to briefly after me, what this could mean, what you talked about, Mayor, with the governor a month ago. Just thrilled that that's part of this overall project and on our property. So with that, with EPR's strong financial backing and involvement in this project, with our zoning approval that happened earlier this evening, with our weekly meetings having gone on for months with our likely contractor Clarkson and our architect and engineer, we will be ready, if we get this body's blessing here tonight, to move forward, not to start by 12/31, which, as staff correctly said, is the time we have to start. We will start here in the next few weeks. We are ready to turn dirt and make something great happen with this project again. So with that, I know who you really wanted to hear from was the MLS champion CEO that we have in our midst. So with that, Mr. Heineman may want to speak to his portion of the project.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson.
Mr. Mayor, Commission, thank you so much for the time. My name is Rob Heineman. I'm the CEO of On Goal, which does business as Sporting Club, which plays at Sporting Park, which is located at One Sporting Way. Hashtag Go Sporting. So with that, I guess the first thing that I'd like to say to all of you tonight is I want to thank you for your patience. This has been a project, obviously, that was contemplated as part of our original development agreement around Sporting Park. And what we always wanted to do was do something in a world-class way. Soccer fields are all over this country, but what we thought we wanted to do was see if we could lure U.S. soccer here. Hopefully all of you were able to see some of the World Cup this summer and see how U.S. soccer captivated this country, and in particular this community. And the fact that they are now going to call the unified government home, I think that's incredible. It gives me chills to say that to you tonight. What we're going to build as part of this project is about 15 soccer fields, an indoor field, a full-size indoor field, about 100,000 square feet of training and sports science, and we're also going to build a futsal project all throughout the community, which I mean, honestly, at the end of the day, I think that could be the coolest part, because what the community lacks, in my opinion, right now are places to play, places for kids to play. And we've got lots of these dilapidated tennis courts and/or open areas that we can go build these futsal courts or small-sided soccer fields. And I think that's going to be something that's going to be really compelling. You know, I know we have the one that we've put up at Wyandotte High School that is used constantly. So for us to have another 10 to 12 of those throughout the community, I think that's going to be a big deal. So as important as the U.S. soccer facility and the big fields that we're talking about, I actually think the futsal fields and that grassroots nature is going to be really strong for the community. On the programming side, this is going to create tons and tons of room nights. Basically what U.S. Soccer is going to locate in this facility is their coaching and referee education program, which that might sound kind of mundane and boring, but as we strive to try to win the World Cup, what that really requires is that our coaching at all levels gets better, that we have a vertically integrated approach to how we develop players and how we win. And so for us to be able to put in place that program that's going to build that foundation here in this country, that's really what the goal needs to be in order for us to try to really be a serious competitor in the World Cup. We were with U.S. Soccer just this last week talking a bit. The World Cup, I don't know if you remember several years ago, we made an attempt here in the U.S. to get it in the U.S., and Kansas City was also one of the bid markets. And I think the fact that probably with certainty, with either in 2022, if Qatar winds up flaking out and we take over the World Cup, and/or 2026, where we're likely to be the prevailing bidder, if that happens and we have the home of U.S. Soccer here in Kansas City, there's no doubt that we'll be a host city. And just a preview for you what that may look like, back when we looked at this several years ago, the economic impact for each host city during the World Cup was a little over $1 billion for just the World Cup. So I think this is just such a great catalyst for what can be, and I think it continues to build on all the great successes that you've had of bringing world-class projects to this area. And so I want to thank you sincerely for the patience you've shown in giving us the time to go make this happen, and I give you my word, when it happens, it'll be very special. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, we are ready now to open the public hearing. And the public hearing, as stated prior, is to consider an amended and expanded Vacation Village Star District and redevelopment project plans for project areas 1, 2, and 4. So that is the public hearing is now open. I would ask if there's anyone who would like to speak in favor of the proposal to please come forward at this time. Anyone like to speak in favor, please come forward at this time.
Mary Ann Flunder, I live at 1236 Grandview Boulevard. I'm not favor or not favor, but I want to ask a question. Can I do that?
You may.
Okay, on the WB and the disadvantage and the women, are they going to be from Wyandotte County and Kansas, Missouri, or are they going to bring them in from other states like it started out in the beginning?
The local minority and women businesses. George, can you step forward and talk to the definition of those as contemplated in the Unified Government's plans?
Sure, I'll try. I'm not the subject matter expert on that. And I don't know if Doug might recall, on the local end, is it, do they have to have offices in Wyandotte County?
Yeah,
Mr.
I can
Bach?
answer the question. For the local, that is a Wyandotte County requirement. So to meet that criteria, they are someone or a business that resides within Wyandotte County, or it can be a resident of Wyandotte County that owns more than 50% of a business, and that business then could be outside of the county. But they must be a resident of our community. The MBWB, or the WBE portion is open to women or minority contractors with no geographic boundary around where they live to be qualified. They just have to be.
So they can live anywhere?
Yes.
Just the women, huh? Women and who
The
else?
minority and women, yes. Local is what's defined as living within Wyandotte County.
Who keeps track of it?
The contractor submits their reports to our compliance office, and our compliance office then tracks that material. We also go out and we will make periodic checks to certify to make sure what they're putting forth is accurate.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Thank you. Anyone else who'd like to speak in favor?
I'm Kevin Quinn with Legends Toyota and Legends Honda, 10100 Parallel Parkway. I believe this project will, I continue what I think we've done, which is create a world-class automotive experience. I don't know anything about world-class soccer, but I believe this is going to continue to make this a destination, Wyandotte County, a destination to buy cars. So I love the effort that Richard has been putting into this and in such a short amount of time, and I'm excited that you guys are, I believe, supporting this project. So thanks.
Sir, can you answer a question for me? Because I get asked this all the time. Why do car dealerships all like to be right next to each other?
Well, it's like a shopping mall. It's advertising the location so that purchasers know where to go, and they don't have to think about it. They know Legends Mall. And so we like it because the rising tide lifts all boats.
Thank you. I get that question every single day. So thank you.
Hi, I'm Charlene Plotisha, and I live at 1918 North 94th Street. And I grew up across the street from where I currently live, and this is in my backyard, and I'm very proud to see the dot getting on the map, both nationally and locally, and I'm very proud that we're starting to have things happen here. And I grew up there, and I remember having to go to another area to buy a birthday card. So I'm very happy and grateful to what this commission has been doing and those before it, and I'm very happy, even though it does affect me, but I'm proud that we're doing something and people are coming to see us.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak in favor?
My name is Thomas Gordon. I live at 2521 North 7th Street, and I am in favor of this project. However, I do have a couple of comments that I'd like to make as well. I think Commissioner Walker mentioned the fact that, you know, a lot of projects come to Wyandotte County and they promise us with great tax incentives and great things in the future. But then when it comes down to making those good on those commitments, you know, there are issues that come up and they get argued and watered down. Ultimately, the person that ends up with the short end of the thing are the residents of Wyandotte County. And I'd like to see something put in place that will offer a guarantee. Most times when you go into performances and you do things, you have to put something up and have some, what they call, some skin in the game. So if you don't have anything to lose, you can always make great proposals. You can make it sound real good. It can be fantastic ear candy. It can look good on paper. But if you got your revenue at stake, then we have some action. So I'd like to see the commissioner to put something in place where that there's something that they have at risk that benefits our county, and then these projects that come up for proposals, they're easier to accept. So if we could put something in place as a performance where that they need to leave some money with us after making these proposals of the tax commitments, that's what I'm speaking about. If you project that it's going to be a $42 million project, then it needs to be based on $42 million, whether it performs or not. So they need to leave some money with us, just like we would if I was coming to open a business. If I wanted to propose for a business, I needed to have some equity, so they need to have some equity as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else like to speak in favor?
My name is Marsha Rapp, 2816 North 46th Street. I just want to say this is a wonderful thing for Wyandotte County, another addition. I hope that the people that work there and train there spend a whole lot of revenue here. I also want to echo the words of a person who has a lot more knowledge than I did at budget time. Remember, when you bring in more buildings and more people, you need more police and fire. So let's get those departments filled and keep them filled. Thank you.
Thank you. Speaking in favor. We're continuing with those speaking in favor of the project.
Speaking in favor. Shocking.
I have said it every time, nothing personal, just saying it every time.
Okay, Mary.
Trying to be
it's all
consistent,
right. I love
trying to
you
be
too.
consistent.
I love you too.
I like the Lion
Mary
King shirt.
Martin, 804 South 89th Street. You know, I live in the area, so I'm very familiar with the area, and I do like the proposal. I think it'd be good for Wyandotte County. However, I think that we need to tweak what we're doing and expand a little bit. I'm concerned that we're a little short-sighted in our approach. I would like to see a little bit more inclusion in terms of what we're doing, not just so much soccer. I am a former athlete. I was a world-class Olympian, track and field, volleyball, basketball, and never played soccer, but do play tennis now. So I'm just thinking that for the girls that we have in our community, I think that we need to embrace them also and not just have this world-class field just for soccer that might be a little bit male-driven, and some of our young ladies might not get a chance to participate. I hear the moans and groans back here, but just my opinion, you know. The other thing is that also in my adult life, I have done construction. I am a certified DB and MBE, so I do know that process. And here in Wyandotte County, I know that the MBEs and WBs are very limited in their participation in construction, and I would hate to see that continue. So I think that that needs to be opened up and broadened specifically for the African American community. I know that here in Wyandotte, we don't like to talk about African Americans' participation specifically, but I think we need to address that issue because we're less than 1% that participate on any of that construction that's been happening, especially out in the Legends. I think that that's wrong. I think that's shame on y'all. I think that y'all need to look at that. The disparity study spoke to that, and I think that we need to address that. If you just look at minorities in totality, then you do meet your goal. But if you look at African Americans specifically, you don't. So I think that we need to address that. What else did you talk about? No, I'm just playing. Anyway, I love you too, Mayor, and
thank you, Ms. Martin.
You know, look at those issues.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak in favor?
I'm Greg Kindle. I'm the president of Wyandotte Economic Development Council and interim president of the Kansas City, Kansas Chamber of Commerce at 727 Minnesota. I live at 4318 North 112th Street here in KCK. Mayor, commissioners, colleagues, I'm here this evening on behalf of the Wyandotte Economic Development Council, specifically in support of the proposed Star Bond District expansion as presented by the UG team. We know that the use of Star Bonds have had a tremendous economic impact and benefit to Wyandotte County and has propelled this community into being the top destination in the state of Kansas, with an estimated 10 million annual visitors, 650 million in annual sales generated from the area, and making up 10% of the county's assessed valuation. Through more than $1 billion in combined public and private investments, we now have more than 115 businesses in Village West, including more than 25 restaurants and several thousand jobs. The synergy that's been created through the Kansas Speedway and Village West created new destination tourism opportunities through developments like Sporting Park, the T-Bones, and Slitterbond. And those developments have been intertwined with the Cerner Continuous Campus, Hollywood Casino, apartment developments, and more recent discussions about a casino hotel, the U.S. Soccer Facility announcement, and a possible convention center. This proposed Star Bond District takes what's been successful and continues to build on it in a strategic way going forward that allows us and the development community maximum marketing opportunities. This expanded area drives development to the east side of 435, enhancing investments the unified government has made along State Avenue and back towards both Providence Medical Center and 78th and State. Collectively, we've proven Star Bonds to be a successful economic development tool to drive investment, sales and property taxes, jobs, and national awareness of our community. In a broader context, this infuses new excitement into this corridor, providing long-term economic growth to the community, creates additional tourism destination appeal, and once again shows Wyandotte County's aggressiveness towards economic development. Thank you for your time, and we again ask for your support for this request.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak in favor?
the mayor, and to the commissioners. I personally think that you have a wonderful program that you all proposed.
Name and
But I
address,
have
please,
some-
ma'am.
I'm sorry, my name is Christine Allen. I live 3604 Delavan. I'm here on behalf of talking about Blooming Hills of the Heartland, which is a program that I have worked on and I am working on. We have quite a few homeless people in our area. And so I wonder where we have decided to understand the needs of our homeless people. And artificial intelligence is growing. And when you say you're going to have a lot of jobs, I wonder where we are going to look at the fact that as it grows, and right now when you pick up your phone or when you talk, it's a voice on the other end that's not human, you know. So I'm thinking, are we really going to have the jobs that we said we're going to have? We're really going to be able to help our people that we need to help? So these are questions that I have, but I like your idea. I like the proposals, and I congratulate you.
Thank you, ma'am. All right. Anyone else like to speak at this time? In favor?
Representative Tom Burrows, 3131 South 73rd Terrace, Kansas City, Kansas. Mayor, Commissioners, ladies and gentlemen, I'm here tonight to listen as to what this proposal presents to our community. And first and foremost, I want to extend a thank you to the Schlitterbahn folks who displayed professional courtesy in including me in the information that has come forward this evening. The district that I represent is the proposed site of this future development. I appreciate that professional courtesy, and I stand ready to support the project. In my political ventures, I do know that you don't stand in the way of something that is very fast-tracked. And I stand ready to partner in any way that I can to help the local unit of government continue its growth and success and its economic viability in this community. I would state that communication and inclusiveness generates good government. And I would hope that moving forward, that we continue to hold public hearings, continue to engage the entire community so that we can all collectively be grateful for the success that our community has experienced through these developments. With the national attention of Sporting Park and the continued commitment under the most economic trying of times by Schlitterbahn, we have good partners. We have long-term viability. I respect that. I respect the work and commitment it takes of this commission to ensure this project moves forward. I want to thank Commissioner Walker about the tax issue. I know that Boda in Topeka is burdened with this issue. I hope that we can get it remedied, and I hope we have a commitment to get that done on behalf of the taxpayers of this community. And I want to specifically thank Commissioner Kane for ensuring that prevailing wage and our union brothers and sisters and Kansas workers have the opportunity at these quality jobs. That is what economic development is about. That is what a community is about, and I sincerely appreciate the opportunity to be included. So I stand in support of the project, and I say it's a great day to be in Kansas City, Kansas.
Thank you, Mr. Burrows. We appreciate that. Anyone else like to speak in favor?
Kevin Gary, 1900 North 94th Street. It's more of a question. It's a great thing. We're the last of the 7 people that live on 94th Street, and I wondered if any discussions have been made regarding the residents there on the west side. That'd be area 5, I believe. We're just going to be just kind of left alone still? Or are you guys going to give us some money? Thank you.
Is that a rhetorical question? I can, all right. Thank you. Anyone else who would like to speak in favor? Let the record show I see no one else coming to the microphone. Is there anyone who would like to speak in opposition tonight? Please come forward.
Hi, I'm John Snyder, attorney with Denton's Law Firm, 4520 Main Street, Kansas City, Missouri.
Just so you know, grew up in Rosedale, went to Sumner Academy, and love to see all the positive development going on here in Wyandotte County. I was reached out today by the owners of the Legends, KKR Legends and Red Legacy. For some reason, the notice of this expanded Star Bond District didn't reach the right people until today. So I got contacted by Dan Lowe and Wes Grammer at Red Legacy to find out a little more information about this, attend the hearing. Had a brief conversation with Gilmore and Bell trying to understand the boundary addition and try to reach out to a couple others. And not opposed to any of this, generally, right? I mean, I think the Schlitterbahn expansion and what's going on with U.S. Soccer and everything is a wonderful, wonderful thing. And the owners are not opposed at all to everything that's going on here, other than the addition of the Star Bond District to include their project, because they haven't had any dialogue. No one's contacted them to discuss it in person, so there's been no dialogue. So from their standpoint, they have some other projects that they're considering out there, multifamily, a convention center project, some additional retail, and this would directly impact some ability to do certain things in the future on that project. And so they just asked me if I could come up here, express their concerns, and say that they, before this is adopted on property that they own, that they have an opportunity to have some dialogue about the impact on the project and kind of go through it. With that said, they don't want to impede progress of what's going on with projects 1, 2, 3, and 5, which I don't think impact Legends, and certainly don't want to impact U.S. Soccer, and not sure if this project, with all the proposed development that's done within the Schlitterbahn overall project area, not sure why it needs to be expanded onto their project when they haven't had any dialogue about that. So that's just their concern, and I apologize that the principals are out of town, who would rather be here in person to kind of have some more dialogue about it. So.
Thank you. All right. Anyone else who'd like to speak in opposition? All right, let the record show that there's no one else coming forward at this time. I will now close the public hearing, and the item is now before the commission for consideration. And we have two proposals. One is an ordinance to approve the new Star District and project plans, and the second is to adopt the resolution for the development agreement for project areas 1, 2, 3, and 5. Those are now properly before us. Commissioner Kane.
Thank you, Mayor. I do think we need to tell everyone in the area what's going on, and as many people as possible. I don't know, you're a little late, I guess. One of the things that I think is we've taken a couple of different groups and brought them together and going to bring something to Wyandotte County that nobody else could. And the futsal, I agree 100% about the fields for the schools. In fact, Harmon needs to get there first, okay? But what people have to realize, soccer is a growing sport, and it's not just for boys, it's for girls as well. And I coached at Piper High School, and I'm telling you, I would have loved to have somebody show, hey, this is the drill you teach the kids, instead of just yelling at them until they got it done.
I can picture that practice.
Visualize. Anyway, Mayor, the first one is?
An ordinance to approve the Star District and project plans.
All right. Move for approval of the ordinance and whatever he just said.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Townsend.
Thank you. At this time, I was trying to wait and hear all of the presentations. I just had a few questions factually, since this is my first Star Bond deal. There were just some specifics, just the short version. There are some numbers that Mr. Brakovic and Mr. LaSala points made. So if you would allow just a few quick point of questions.
Absolutely. I'd invite you two gentlemen to come to the podium.
Okay, I'm not sure whether it was during Mr. LaSalle's presentation or Mr. Brakovic's, but there was a reference made to allocation of monies to the county, to the city, Bonner Springs. I'm not quite sure what that was pertaining to, but my question goes to what were you talking about and how much of that goes to, I don't know, KCK, Wyandotte County, and this has resonance for me as I look forward to going to the third budget. And we're talking about the balance between KCK's budget and Wyandotte County's. So what was that in reference to? Does that make sense?
I think what you're referring to is when we talked about the two dealerships that had formerly been present within the county that are coming into this district, there was a concern about preserving the base sales taxes for those jurisdictions that those dealerships left. And so there is an agreement within this document where we will take $15.5 million worth of sales a year, and we're going to keep those dollars. They will not wind up in this new district. They will be allocated pursuant to the county formula, and then the city portion of those sales taxes will be evenly split between Bonner and Edwardsville, where those dealerships, the areas where those dealerships were leaving, or have left, rather.
All right, so they were based on where they're leaving. Okay, thank you. That took care of that one. The $90 million figure that was mentioned, what is the triggering event that gets that to the city? Is that the bond?
Yeah,
okay.
it would be the issuance and sale of bonds.
Okay, and the 25 million that was the holdback, is that 25 million of that 90 that we were talking about?
Correct.
Okay. With regard to teeth, now this was done during Mr. Brakovic's presentation. You talked about teeth that are in the development agreement with regard to the MBE, WBE issue. Couple of questions. One, to qualify as an MBE or WBE with this project, do those entities have to currently have some certification by the state, or do we, in KCK Wyandotte County, issue our own certification, or is none required?
They must have certification, so that's a requirement. We do not do a certification and process ourselves. We accept certification process from the state of Kansas or the certification process in Kansas City, Missouri.
Okay. The second.
Kansas Black Chamber of Commerce does the state certification. I was able to figure yesterday doing it too.
Okay. Thank you. With regard to exercising the teeth in the in the development agreement, is the option for us to, I believe it was withdraw money or withhold money, predicated on the developer not being in compliance with the goals stated, or simply not filing a report? I wasn't clear on that.
It's both. You have two different remedies within the documents because you have pay-as-you-go CID and money that will, incentive that will flow through that CID and come to the developer on an ongoing basis throughout the project. One remedy that you have has to do with reporting. If they don't file the reports, you can shut off the money and say, I'm not going to give you any more of this CID money until you comply and file your reports. The 25% reduction in the CID distributions has to do with really failure to comply with the goals, and so under the agreement. So it's about both missing the goals and proving that they did not use best efforts to meet those goals under the agreement.
Oh, okay. Well, you took the word right out of my mouth with the best efforts issue. Okay. An issue that I just found intriguing raised by Commissioner Walker with the evaluation of projects like this. maybe we can't do it now, but just my thought on hearing that is there some way in future deals like this that we could establish, just as a negotiated point, a floor on which they agree to pay taxes, like a plus or minus 5% of whatever the stated appraised value is?
I'll
or
let Todd
estimated.
probably speak to this more, but this has been an issue we have pushed to try to find if there was a way that we could get a guarantee on a tax. You know, when you do a property tax abatement and you enter into an IRB, we have the ability to state this is what's going to be paid in association with that. We don't have any property tax abatement in this deal. So we have challenged ourselves throughout these deals to try to come up with different ways, you know, to come in and find where the guarantee is. The number that Mr. Brakovich stated in relation to the property tax values that we think will be in this project are related on a couple of factors, which we feel makes it fairly secure. One is a large part of the property values that are associated with this deal, or the new deal coming forward, come from the auto dealers. So in this case, we have a couple of the new auto dealers that Mr. Quinn represented up there that we have as good comparables in the area. Unlike some of the other projects where we brought into our community when they're somewhat of an anomaly when they're built. So that's unique to the area. You don't have comparables. In this case, we do. Other numbers he referenced are Schlitterbahn been in place as a water park, and they've been paying taxes out there for a number of years, so they have a value. So that was included as part of the number as we go forward and say, this is where we're at. So that gives us a reasonable confidence when we're looking at this kind of a project to say where we're at. But Todd, if you've come up with a thought tonight as to how we could guarantee our taxes, please throw it out there.
No, I don't have anything specific tonight. I would welcome the opportunity to talk about this issue in some detail with the commission, perhaps at some point in executive session. There are a bunch of legal issues about this issue and how much you can contractually bind someone to a specific number with regard to property taxes, because you have to balance your desire to do that and your ability to contract with that party against their inherent right to protest their property taxes. So all I can say, I think, is that there's a bunch of legal issues that have to do with a property owner's inherent right to protest their taxes, and that's really the challenge about any provision that would lock a developer into a specific number.
And I was thinking, though, if you agree to it, then you forego that challenge. You don't? Okay. Well, just a thought. That was intriguing. Last thing, I was happy to see Mr. Heineman here, and it makes me recall that I have an IOU to find out about the applicability, suitability of a football court in District 1, where we have an open field and we're trying to develop Garland Park. This would be a natural bridge from what's happening out west in my district. So I look forward to following up on that again. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Walker.
I guess I would ask George or Todd to respond to the gentleman's comment about late notice, and did we send it to someone who should have gotten it, and it, you know, through no fault of ours, it didn't make it to or get opened by or read by the right person?
The first part of my answer is what we're required to do by the statute, and that is send certified notice to all property owners and tenants within the affected district within a 10-day period from when this body approved the resolution setting the public hearing. Knowing what the economic development staff, what a task that was given the number of owners, we did verify that one went to KKR and one went to Legends Partners. We also worked with our business license division to ensure that any physical address within the Legends Shopping Center, both received a letter to whoever was stated as the owner of the property and a letter to the tenant. We didn't bring the receipts to that certified mail down with us, but we'll verify to ensure that we received a return mail from that.
Well, if I heard the gentleman correctly, he wants some kind of a dialogue, and I would assume that you're capable of dialoguing and presenting what needs to be done. I'm not in favor of delaying this, but they are one of our community partners, and I would rather them be on board than litigating a, certified mail receipt.
Sure.
Okay? Thank you.
Will do.
All right. We have a motion and second properly before us. Commissioner Kane?
Nope. I'll make a second.
All right. We are ready to vote on the ordinance approving the new STAR district and project plans. Roll call.
Roll call, Philbrook,
Aye.
Walker,
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
McKiernan,
Aye.
Regia,
Aye.
Maddox,
Aye.
Kane,
Aye.
Markley.
Aye.
Motion carries 8-0.
The second motion is a resolution approving the development agreement for Schlitterbahn Vacation Village for project areas 1, 2, 3, and 5.
Motion to approve.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded for approval. Seeing no comments, roll call.
Roll call, Philbrook,
Aye.
Walker,
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
McKiernan,
Aye.
Regia,
Aye.
Maddox,
Aye.
Kane,
Aye.
Markley.
Aye.
Motion carries 8-0.
All right, that completes our work tonight, and we look forward to dirt moving soon. Thank you for your work. All right, I would ask that you please move quietly. We do have some additional business. That completes that project. We're just getting warmed up. We have 2 travel requests that we need to submit.
Move for approval.
Second.
We'll take them together.
All those signify by saying aye.
Roll call.
Roll call, Philbrook,
Aye.
Walker,
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
McKiernan,
Aye.
Regia,
Aye.
Maddox,
Aye.
Kane,
Aye.
Markley.
Aye.
Motion carries 8-0.
That brings us to the Land Bank. We will now adjourn as commissioners, and we will reconvene as the Land Bank Board of Trustees. We have before us a consent agenda.
Move for approval.
Second.
Does anyone like to remove any item? Seeing no one moving forward at this time, the motion and second are properly before us. Roll call.
Roll call, Philbrook,
Aye.
Walker,
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
McKiernan,
Aye.
Regia,
Aye.
Maddox,
Aye.
Kane,
All consent.
Markley.
Aye.
Motion carries 8-0.
That concludes our meeting tonight. We are adjourned.
Sorry. I was like, wait a minute.